I came home after 8 years. 8 years building a life from scratch in another state, sending money every month, calling every Sunday. I thought they would miss me. I thought my mother would cry when she saw me at the door. My father would squeeze my shoulder the way he did when I was a child. My sister would laugh in that way of hers. But when I rang the doorbell, my mother opened the door, looked at me and said, "You didn't tell us you were coming." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, as if I were a forgotten neighbor. And I realized right there that I had been erased. Absence doesn't leave scars. It leaves emptiness. And the worst part? I thought they were waiting for me. I thought this house was still mine. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a white wooden house with a porch that creaked when it rained. My father was a factory worker. My mother worked part-time at a laundromat. We didn't have much, but we had a routine. Dinner at 6, movie on Friday, barbecue on Sunday. I was the oldest. She had a sister 3 years younger, Chelsea. We fought over the remote control, but we were close. When I was 23, I got a job offer in Denver, construction. Good pay. Much better than anything Portland could offer. My mother cried the day I left. My father didn't say much, but he gave me a hug that lasted longer than usual. Chelsea joked about me finally getting out of her way, but she cried too. I promised I would always come back. Holidays, birthdays. That. The distance wouldn't change anything, and in the beginning, it didn't. I called every week. I sent money whenever I had some left over. On the first Christmas, I came back. The house was decorated the way it always was. Yellow lights on the porch, a small tree in the living room. My mother made turkey. Everything seemed the same. But in the following years, it became more difficult to return. The work in Denver was demanding. Overtime, busy weekends. I sent money instead of being there. Thought that was enough. I thought they would understand. My father never complained. My mother said everything was fine. Chelsea stopped answering my calls as often, but I thought it was just a phase. She was in college, busy. 8 years passed like that. Me building a career, them moving on with their lives. Connections became shorter, less frequent. But I always believed that house was still mine, that those people were still waiting for me, until the day I decided to return unannounced. Surprise, like in the movies. I bought a ticket, drove 6 hours from the airport, and rang the doorbell. And my mother opened the door, looking at me as if I were a polite stranger. She didn't hug me. She just took a step to the side and said, "Come in." The tone was the same you use with a technician who came to fix the refrigerator. Polite, distant, functional. I went in. The house smelled different. No longer her perfume mixed with stale coffee. Now, it had an artificial aroma. Lavender-scented electrical plug. The living room was rearranged. The sofa was no longer facing the TV. The photo shelf had been moved. I searched for my face in the picture frames. There was a small photo of me from my high school graduation, in the corner. The larger photos were of Chelsea. Wedding, her graduation. A dog I'd never seen before. "When did you get a dog?" I asked. My mother looked at me as if she'd forgotten I was there. "Oh, Max, about 4 years ago." 4 years, they had a dog. For 4 years, and I didn't know. My father was in the kitchen. He looked up when he saw me, nodded, and went back to the newspaper. "How are things in Denver?" That was all he said. He didn't get up. He didn't squeeze my shoulder. He treated the question like small talk. I said everything was fine. He mumbled something and turned the page. I sat on the sofa. My mother sat in the armchair. Silence. The kind of silence you have with visitors. Not the comfortable silence of family. She asked if I wanted water. I said yes. She brought it in a disposable cup, as if I were someone who wasn't going to stay long. I tried to start a conversation. I asked about her work. She gave short answers. I asked about Chelsea. "She's fine, working a lot." I asked if she was coming to dinner. My mother hesitated. "She doesn't live here anymore. She has her own apartment now." I didn't know. Chelsea had an apartment. Max, the dog, existed. The room was different. I was sitting in my own house and didn't, recognize anything. And they didn't seem to notice that this was strange. Hey, if you've ever felt this way, returning to a place that should be yours and realizing you don't belong anymore, subscribe to the channel. Because this story is only going to get heavier. And I need to know you're here with me. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from right now. I want to know where you are at this moment. Just you and me here. I stayed for 3 days. 3 days trying to fit into a house that no longer had my space. My room became a storage room. Stacked boxes, old clothes. My bed was still there, but covered with objects that no one used. My mother apologized in a way that didn't sound like an apology. We needed the space. You haven't been here in so long. I slept on the sofa. Max, the dog, growled at me the first night. He didn't recognize me. Of course not. He'd never seen me before. My mother told him it was okay, stroked his head, and went to sleep. She didn't offer me a blanket. I had to get one from the closet myself. On the second day, Chelsea came to dinner. She greeted me with a quick hug, the kind you give a work acquaintance. She sat across the table. She talked about her job, financial analyst, fiancé named Derek, wedding planned for September. She spoke quickly, as if she wanted to fill the silence, but she didn't include me in the stories. They were things that had already happened, decisions already made. I was just an audience member. I asked about Derek, if I was going to meet him. She exchanged a look with my mother. Maybe. He's busy this week. Busy? Derek was too busy to meet his fiancé's brother, or Chelsea didn't think it was important. Dinner was strange. My mother made roast chicken. It wasn't the dish she always made when I lived there. It was something new, different spices. She asked if I liked it. I said yes. She didn't seem to care about the answer. My father ate in silence. He was always quiet, but this was different. It wasn't the comfortable silence of someone who doesn't need to speak. It was the silence of someone who has nothing to say. He didn't ask me about Denver, about my work, about my life. Nothing. After dinner, Chelsea left quickly, meeting with Derek to plan the wedding. She kissed my mother on the cheek, waved to me. Then she left. I helped wash the dishes. My mother washed them. I dried them. It used to be our ritual. She would talk about her day. I would listen. But this time, she didn't talk. She just washed, mechanically, quickly, as if she wanted to finish quickly. When she was done, she took off her glove, hung it on the hook, and went to watch TV. I stood there in the kitchen, holding a damp dish towel, and I realized they had moved on, without me. On the third day, I tried to create a moment, something that could resemble what we used to have. I suggested pizza. Friday was pizza day when I lived there. My father looked up from his phone. My mother hesitated. We don't usually order pizza anymore. Your father is watching his cholesterol. I suggested a movie then. She said she was tired. My dad had an online veterans meeting at 8. Chelsea wasn't coming. I stayed alone in the living room, watching TV quietly, listening to my dad talking to strangers on the computer in his bedroom. I started noticing more things, photos that weren't there anymore. My college graduation photo, gone. The photo of when I won the award for best student in high school, gone. There was space on the wall, but it wasn't filled with me. It was filled with Chelsea. Chelsea and Derek smiling on a beach. Chelsea receiving her postgraduate diploma. Chelsea with Max. I was a ghost in that house. Not literally. Worse. I was someone who once existed, but was replaced by new routines, new people, new versions of those who remained. I called a childhood friend, Marcus. We grew up together. He still lived in Portland. He agreed to grab a beer. I met him at a bar near my house. He gave me a real hug, patted me on the back, laughed. Man, it's been so long. We talked for hours. He told me about his job, mechanic, married, 2 kids. He asked about my life, listened, asked questions, cared. And I realized that Marcus, whom I hadn't seen in 8 years, treated me more like family than my own family. I got home late. The porch light was off. The door was locked. I had to ring the doorbell. My mother opened it in her bathrobe. "Do you have a key?" No, I didn't. She gave me the spare key. "Here, take this, in case you go out again." If I go out again. As if I were a guest. I went to sleep on the couch. Max growled again. This time I didn't even care. I started to feel something strange in my chest. It wasn't anger. Anger would be easier. It was a dull ache. Constant. Like when you hurt your knee and forget about it, but every time you bend your leg, you remember. I was bending my leg all the time in that house. On the morning of the 4th day, I had breakfast. Alone. My mother had left early for work. My father was watching the news. I sat down next to him. I tried to start a conversation. "Dad, do you remember when we used to go fishing at the lake?" He looked at me as if he'd forgotten. "Oh, yes, it's been a while." And he went back to the TV. "It's been a long time." That was all he had to say. It's been a long time. As if those moments meant nothing. As if I meant nothing. I insisted. "We should go again. While I'm still here." He scratched his beard. "I don't know. I'm kind of busy this week." Busy. My father was too busy to spend a day with me. He was retired. His occupation consisted of watching TV and going to veterans meetings once a week. But he was too busy for me. I left home. I drove aimlessly. Portland seemed different. The streets were the same, the buildings too. But I didn't feel like I belonged there. I passed the school where I studied, the ice cream shop where I worked in the summer, the park where I used to run. Everything was there, but I wasn't. I pulled into an empty parking lot. I rested my forehead on the steering wheel, and for the first time in years, I cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just tears streaming down my face, silently, because I had given 8 years of my life to building something better for myself. And in the process, I lost the only place I thought I would always belong. I called my boss in Denver. I asked if I could come back early. He said yes. No questions asked. Went back home. I packed my suitcase. My mother arrived home from work. She saw the suitcase. "Are you leaving already?" Already. As if I had just arrived. As if 4 days was too long. I said yes. "Work." She nodded. "Okay. Drive carefully." Drive carefully, that's all. I expected more. I expected her to ask me to stay, to say she missed me, to acknowledge the space I left. But none of that happened. Just drive carefully, as if I were a coworker leaving after a quick coffee. My father was in the backyard. I went to say goodbye. He was pruning a bush. He wiped his hand on his pants. He shook my hand. Not my shoulder. My hand. Like strangers. "It was good to see you. It was good to see you." Past, finished, as if I had already left before I even left. Chelsea wasn't there. I texted her saying I was on my way. She replied 2 hours later. "Okay, have a good trip. Talk to you later." We talk. We never used to. But she said we do talk. I put my bag in the car. I looked at the house. That white house with the creaking porch. That place that was once my refuge. Now it was just a structure. Walls. Roof. Furniture. But it wasn't home. Not anymore. I got in the car. I started the engine. And I drove off. Nobody waved from the window. Nobody ran to stop me. Nobody called afterwards to ask if I arrived safely. I simply went. On the road, I tried to understand. I tried to pinpoint the exact moment when everything changed. Was it when I stopped going on? Holidays? When the phone calls became less frequent? When money replaced presence? Or was it before? Maybe it was always like this. Maybe I just never realized it. Maybe they never needed me the way I needed them. I drove for 6 hours crying, Not the whole time, but in waves. Waves that came from nowhere and caught me off guard. A song on the radio, a sign with the name of a city, a memory that appeared without asking permission. When I arrived in Denver, my apartment was exactly as I had left. Silent, empty, but at least it was honest. It wasn't pretending to be something it wasn't. And I realized something that hurt more than anything. I had nowhere to go back to. The following weeks were strange. I went back to work. Normal routine, wake up, gym, construction site, lunch, more construction site, go home, dinner alone, sleep, repeat. But something had changed. I couldn't stop thinking about those 4 days. I couldn't stop reliving every silence, every vacant look, every curt answer. I always thought family was unconditional, that no matter the distance, no matter the time, that bond was permanent. But it's not. Family is work. It's presence. It's a choice. And I had chosen Denver. I had chosen a career. I had chosen absence. And they had chosen to move on without me. I stopped calling every Sunday, not out of anger, but because I didn't know what to say anymore. The conversations were mechanical. How are you? Good. And you? Good too. That's good. Silence. Okay, then. We'll talk later. And we never talked later. My mom didn't call to ask why I stopped calling. My dad didn't either. Chelsea texted occasionally. Memes, no context, no real conversation. Just content to fill the void. I started going to therapy. First time in my life. I wasn't going to tell anyone. I thought it was a sign of weakness. But I was carrying a weight I couldn't bear alone anymore. The therapist, Linda, was patient. She let me talk. Or be silent. She didn't judge. In the first sessions, I talked about Denver, work, routine, superficial things. But in one session, she asked, "Why did you come back to Portland?" I said I wanted to see my family, to catch up with them. She tilted her head. "And what did you expect to find?" I took a deep breath. I was hoping they would miss me. And did they feel it? Silence. Long. Heavy. No. She nodded. "And how does that make you feel?" I didn't know how to respond, how to put it into words, because it wasn't just sadness. It wasn't just anger. It was a mixture. It was discovering that the place you thought was yours never was. It was realizing that you were forgotten, erased, replaced. "It makes me feel invisible," I said, like I never mattered. And for the first time I spoke about guilt. The guilt of having left. The guilt of having chosen my career. The guilt of not having returned. But Linda asked me a question that changed everything. "Do you think things would be different if you had stayed?" I thought about it. I thought about it a lot. And the answer was no. Because distance didn't create the problem. It only revealed it. I discovered that my family was never good at showing affection, not even when I lived there. My father was always distant. My mother, practical. Chelsea, kept to herself. We coexisted. But we didn't connect. Not really. I romanticized it. I created warmer memories than they actually were. Because when you leave home young, you tend to remember the good times and forget the emptiness. But the voids have always been there. The difference is that when I lived there, I filled those voids with expectation. When I grow up, it will be different. When I prove my worth, they will see me. When I achieve something great, they will be proud. But I did achieve it. I built a career, I sent money, I supported myself, and even then, it wasn't enough. Because the problem was never me, it was them. It was their inability to connect, and I carried that burden as if it were my fault. Linda helped me see that. She said, "You can't control how people love you. You can only control how you respond." And I decided I was going to stop responding in expectation of crumbs. I stopped texting, hoping for a quick reply. I stopped calling, hoping for excitement. I stopped existing in their orbit, waiting to be pulled closer. I just existed. For myself. In Denver. In my life. alone. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't seem so bad. I started going out more. I made friends at work. I met a girl, Sarah, an engineer. We met at a happy hour. We talked for hours. She was different, present. She asked about me and really listened. She didn't just wait for her turn to speak. On our third meeting, she asked about my family. I hesitated. But I told her. I told her about Portland, about coming back, about being forgotten. She held my hand. That must have hurt a lot. And I almost cried right there, because no one had said it. No one had acknowledged the, pain. Not my mother, not my father, not Chelsea, but Sarah, who barely knew me, validated in one sentence what I had felt alone for months. We kept going out. Nothing serious, just company. But it was good. It was light. For the first time, I wasn't trying to fill a family void with someone else. I was just present. But there was still one thing I needed to do. September arrived. Chelsea's wedding. I received the invitation in the mail, formal, no note, no personal message, just my name, printed, and an +1 as an option. I checked in. I confirmed my attendance alone. I wouldn't bring Sarah. I didn't want to mix that with her. I bought a plane ticket. I booked a hotel. I wasn't going to stay at their house. Not again. I arrived in Portland on the Friday before the wedding. The ceremony was on Saturday. I went straight to the hotel. I texted Chelsea to say I had arrived. She replied with a heart emoji. That's all. On Saturday, I got ready. Gray suit, blue tie. I drove to, the location. A winery on the outskirts of town. Beautiful, rustic, expensive. Derek must have had money. I arrived early. There were still few guests. I saw my mother arranging flowers. I went to greet her. She hugged me quickly. It's so good that you came. As if it were optional. As if I were a distant acquaintance and not the bride's brother. My father was talking to other men, veterans, all in suits. I approached. He introduced me. This is my son. He lives in Denver. He didn't say my name, just my son, as if I were secondary information. I sat on an empty bench. I watched. More people arriving. Derek's family, Chelsea's friends, faces I didn't recognize. No one recognized me either. I was invisible again. The ceremony began. Chelsea entered looking beautiful. White dress, huge smile. My father accompanied her to the altar. He gave her away to Derek. Derek cried. Chelsea cried. My mother cried. I didn't cry. I just observed. And I realized I wasn't part of it. Not really. I was an audience member. Not a protagonist. Not even a supporting actor. Just someone who bought a ticket and sat in a seat. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Food, drinks, music, speeches. Derek thanked his family. Then he thanked my mother and father. He said they were welcoming, that he felt part of the family. And then he thanked his friends. But he didn't mention my name, nor Chelsea. Neither of them spoke about me. It was as if I didn't exist. I stayed until the end, because I knew that if I left early, nobody would notice. And I wanted to prove it to myself. I wanted to see if anyone would look for me. Nobody asked. Late that night, Chelsea came over to me. She was tired, happy, drunk. She hugged me. Thank you for coming. I said it was nice. She smiled. Did you meet Derek? I said no. She looked around. Oh, he must be around here. I'll introduce you later. She never introduced herself. I left without saying goodbye. Nobody noticed. I went back to the hotel. I sat on the bed. I looked in the mirror. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. Just clarity. They weren't villains. They hadn't hurt me on purpose. They just moved on. And I'd been stuck on the idea that family was forever. But family is a choice. And they had chosen me before. But not anymore. And that's okay. I went back to Denver on Sunday morning. I didn't let anyone know. I just went. Nobody called afterwards to ask if I arrived safely. Nobody texted. Chelsea posted photos of the wedding, hundreds of photos. I was in two, in the background, out of focus. I stopped sending money, not out of revenge, but because I realized that money doesn't buy presents. It doesn't buy recognition. It doesn't buy love. It only buys guilt. And I wasn't going to pay anymore for a place where I didn't belong. I deleted some old photos from my phone. Not all of them, but the ones that hurt too much. The ones that made me believe in something that no longer existed. And I started living differently. I started investing in the people who invested in me. Sarah, Marcus, who even from afar cared. Co-workers who invited me to barbecues and genuinely wanted me to go. Therapy continued. Linda helped me process it. She said, "Grief isn't just about death. It's about loss. And you lost a version of your family that may never have existed." And she was right. I was grieving. But not for them. For myself. For the illusion. For the boy who thought that if he worked hard, if he sent money, if he called every Sunday, he would be loved unconditionally. But unconditional love doesn't exist in adults. Love is effort. It's a choice. And they had stopped choosing. So I stopped too. 6 months later, my mother called. It was strange, because she never called. It was always me. I answered. "Hi, Mom." She seemed nervous. "Hi. How are you?" "Everything's fine. Everything's always fine." She made small talk, time, work, Chelsea. And then, "Your father wants to know if you're coming for Christmas." Not, "I want you to come." Not, "We miss you." Just, "Your father wants to know." I took a deep breath. "I don't know, Mom. Work is heavy." Silence. She expected me to say yes. As always, but I didn't. "Ah, I understand. Well, if you change your mind, let me know." I hung up. I didn't call back. I didn't change my mind. I spent Christmas with Sarah. Her family invited me. They didn't know me well, but they treated me like a person. They talked to me. They included me. They asked questions. They laughed at my jokes. And I realized that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about effort. It's about reciprocity. My mother texted me on Christmas. "Merry Christmas." I replied the same. Nothing more. Chelsea posted a picture of their Christmas. Max wearing a Santa hat. My parents smiling. Derek next to her. The whole family. Without me. And it didn't hurt. Not like before. Because I had learned to stop waiting. Months turned into years. Contact became rare. Sporadic. Birthdays. Important dates. Automated messages. Lacking depth. And I was fine. Really. I built a life in Denver. Friends. Sarah became something serious. We moved in together. We adopted a cat. New routines. Easygoing. No weight from the past. Until my father had a heart attack. My mother called. Crying. "Your father is in the hospital." I took the first flight. I arrived in Portland in the early morning. I went straight to the hospital. My father was stable, conscious. Chelsea was already there. My mother too. I entered the room. My father looked at me. Tired. Weak. "You came." He seemed surprised. I stayed 3 days again. But this time it was different. Because I wasn't expecting anything. I wasn't expecting hugs. I wasn't expecting deep conversations. I wasn't expecting reconnection. I was only there because it was the right thing to do. Not for them. For me. My father got better. He was discharged from the hospital. He went home. I helped organize his medications, schedules, and appointments. I did what needed to be done. But I didn't try to create moments. I didn't force intimacy. Last night, my mother made dinner. Chicken again. We ate in silence. Chelsea was there. Derek too. Max under the table. I looked around, and I didn't feel emptiness. I didn't feel pain. Just peace. Because I had accepted it. Accepted that this was the family I had. Not the one I wanted. Not the one I idealized. But the real one. And real was enough. As long as I didn't expect more than they could give. I said goodbye the next day. My father shook my hand. My mother gave me a quick hug. Chelsea waved, and I left. Without weight, without expectation, without resentment. I went back to Denver. Sarah picked me up at the airport. She hugged me tightly. How was it? It was okay. And it was true. Today I maintain minimal contact, birthday messages, Christmas, important dates, but I don't force it. I don't call every week. I don't expect a response. I don't invest where I'm not invested in. And it's not coldness, it's protection. It's choosing where to put my energy. Because I learned that absence doesn't leave scars, it leaves space. And you can fill that space with resentment, or with peace. I chose peace. They didn't change, but I changed. And that was enough. If you've made it this far, leave a like. Not for me, but because you understood. You felt it. And that matters. Subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to keep telling these stories. Real stories, painful, but necessary. And click on the video that's appearing on your screen now. Because if this story touched you, the next one will change you. Don't miss it. You need to see this. I'll be waiting for you there.